Bob Marley at his best is a transcendent artist. Not only does he transcend genre like the Beatles or the Beastie Boys or Ella Fitzgerald or Coltrane, Bob Marley transcends normal songwriting and lyricism to become a literal prophet, delivering what sounds to me like divine messages from Jah. And I'm not even kidding, man. His lyrics on songs like One Love communicate a universality of all people, while conveying comfort, warmth, and deep love. His best songs feel like a hug from a good friend. But as amazing as most of Bob Marley and the Wailers' records are, they are not all created equal. So we're ranking their albums worst to best. And I'll even tell you on the rare occasions when I think there's a bad song. We're talking about 9 studio albums on Tough Gong, the subsidiary of Island Records. We won't include Live, and we won't include Legend. I'm assuming y'all know that's Bob Marley and the Wailers' greatest hits record. It's a great collection, but you know what? We're better than that, man. We dig deeper. I should say something about how I did all this. I felt wrong judging Bob Marley at all, frankly. But I did it not just by relying on my memory of these records. I did it by re-listening closely to every song multiple times and grading it from 1 to 10 based on how catchy, uplifting, lyrically interesting, well-performed, well-produced, generally memorable the recording is, and how much I like it. And then I averaged the song scores to reach a score between 1 and 10 for each record. This is all entirely subjective, of course, but I'm including the scores each album got just to give you a sense of where I landed on it. Post comments below, I want to hear it. Alright, let's get down to it. Coming in at number 9, Survival scored 6.5. Released in October 1979, this politically oriented record has a big vision, but it doesn't really have any big hits. Africa Unite is the standout track for me here, without question. It's the most catchy, inspiring track on here. It's been speculated that Survival was a response to criticism Bob Marley got that the previous album, Kaya, was too laid back and light on messages. In my opinion, Kaya is a much better record, so that goes to show you what I think about that. But we'll get to that soon. Rasta Man Vibration comes in at number 8 with a score of 6.6. Released in April of 1976, this record isn't terrible, it just suffers from not having a string of mega hits on it. I honestly don't think any of these albums is objectively bad, but when I scored every one of the songs on here, I just didn't end up with that high of a score. The album was commercially a great success, reaching the top 10 in the US Billboard 100, which was a first for the Wailers. Roots Rock Reggae was the single here, maybe because rock radio would be more likely to play it, but it's not my favorite song. In my opinion, Night Shift, War, and Rat Race are the best songs on this record. Coming in at number 7, Confrontation from May 1983, got a score of 7.4. Confrontation was released posthumously in May 1983, 2 years after Bob Marley's death. It combines unreleased material recorded during Bob's lifetime, including the mega hit Buffalo Soldier, and new mixes of singles previously only available in Jamaica. Most of it's pretty darn good, with Rasta Man Live Up and Buffalo Soldier as clear high points for me. Interestingly, they had the I3s re-record the backing vocals on the older singles, so the sound would be more unified on the record. So that means the Meditations, who did the original backing vocals, were ditched. I'm assuming they did a full remix of it too, because they really brought those tracks forward. The only track I heard on all the Wailers records I listened to that I actively thought was just bad was on this album. It has a terrible, dated, almost disco-y synth track layered over the top. If you want to hear the absolute worst Bob Marley song of all time, it's called I Know, and it's on Confrontation.
This sucks.
Coming in at number 6 is Catch a Fire from April 1973 with a score of 7.7. This was the first Wailers album on Island Records. The Wailers were stuck in England after a tour was cut short with this dispute with CBS Records. The Wailers tour manager approached Chris Blackwell from Island Records about advancing the band money for an album. Well, Blackwell apparently liked the idea. He advanced the band the money, and they used the money to get back to Jamaica, where they recorded Catch a Fire, with Bob returning later to deliver the masters to Blackwell so that he could mix them and provide some overdubs. The classic songs Stop That Train and 400 Years, led by Peter Tosh, both seem a little slow to me. maybe it's just because I'm used to the older upbeat versions. I'm not sure. I think it's a personal thing, I guess. Stir It Up and Kinky Reggae are absolutely perfect, though. And Midnight Ravers sort of weirdly showcases a less than tolerant view of gender fluidity, which to me makes it a little bit less listenable, or a lot less listenable. There's not a lot said about the meaning behind Midnight Ravers lyrics, so please comment if you have clarification on it or you know anything about that song. Coming in at number 5, Burnin' from October 1973 with a score of 7.8. The album was recorded at Harry J's studio in Kingston, Jamaica, with the Wailers producing. Mixed and overdubbed again by Chris Blackwell at Island Records in London, this is the final record they did with Peter Tosh, and the imprint of his influence is burned on the record. The keys-driven sound of Get Up, Stand Up and other songs is so strongly aligned with the Peter Tosh records that were to follow. Naturally, I Shot the Sheriff was a massive hit, eventually covered by massive douche Eric Clapton. The record as a whole is a bit uneven, moving from the perplexing Pass It On to the genius smooth retake of Marley classic Duppy Conqueror and the Tosh-led One Foundation. Hallelujah Time is one of the worst songs in the Wailers catalog, and in my opinion, it should have been left as a B-side. But Rastaman Chant is one of those sublime Wailers moments when you feel welcomed into and indeed engulfed by the music, and in this case, it's a Rastafarian prayer swirling around you. Rastaman Chant, highly recommended. In 2007, Burnin' was added to the Library of Congress's National Recording Registry for its historical and cultural significance. That seems a little arbitrary to me, considering the full catalog of Marley's work, but if you know why this specific record was chosen for that honor, feel free to comment. I'd love to know. Number 4 is Uprising from June 1980 with a score of 8.2. From the opening bass drop of Coming In From the Cold to when Bob says it's you I'm talking to, you feel like they've somehow done it again. This is one of those deep, positive, awesomely groovy tracks that could have been on Legend, and it wouldn't have been out of place. In fact, you kind of wonder why it wasn't. Too political or something? The production is perfect, locked in for this record, and it's my favorite sounding Wailers record production-wise. The bass, mids, and highs are perfectly mixed, and everything can be clearly heard. Uprising was Bob Marley's final studio album, and it's one of his most religious, with Redemption Song and Forever Lovin' Jah. Could You Be Loved is still a hit on wedding and even nightclub dance floors around the world, every week. Pimper's Paradise is the low point of this record, mostly because of the annoying, repetitive lyric. I don't even want to say the word pimper for this video. Coming in at number 3 is Kaya from March 1978 with a score of 8.3. Kaya reached number 5 in the UK, even though it was criticized for being less militant and more mellow, with an emphasis on love and ganja rather than social justice. The songs here were recorded alongside the songs for Exodus at the same time. That fact revealed to me that the Wailers, like the Beatles, had periods of time when they were creating and recording 2 classic albums simultaneously. Talk about prolific. Is This Love, Sun Is Shining, Satisfy My Soul show that the Wailers were still churning out easy, perfect-sounding reggae hits in 1978, despite the criticisms. Time Will Tell might not be a Legend hit, but it reaches that sublime lyrical and musical state where you practically meditate automatically when you listen to it. She's Gone is a bit odd sounding with the overdone vocal effects and lackluster chorus, and Running Away maybe doesn't hold up to the other selections lyrically, but they're still quality tracks. The title track Kaya is nice, and I love this version, but I gotta recommend, again, listen to the older, spookier, more ethereal sounding recording of Kaya Bob released 4 years earlier. It sounds like a floating cloud of smoke. I'll put a link in the comments. Coming in at number 2 is Natty Dread from October 1974 with a score of 8.7. Natty Dread is a sublime record. The band was fully in sync. The I3s had joined the band on backup vocals. The production was spot on, and the songwriting is all incredibly inspired. Peter Tosh had left the band, and Bob Marley had the reins. There's no filler on this record at all. While making this video, sometimes I heard a song on one of these albums and I said to myself, it sounds like they're just making this up because they need another song for the album. That's definitely not the case on Natty Dread. Surprisingly, there's also not a single track that ended up on the Legend Greatest Hits collection here. But my rank for this album is one of the highest. We have the studio version of No Woman No Cry. The version on Legend is taken from the 3-disc live set, so... But what that means for the average listener is that you can get this record with a ton of good songs on it, and you will probably never have heard them if you've only really heard Legend. And a number one record by Bob Marley and the Wailers is Exodus from June 1977 with a score of 9.2. Bob Marley and the Wailers hit their peak of production with Exodus in June of 1977, and what a summer album drop, man. The strength of this record is so clear, the jaw-dropping song list. The second side is a string of massive worldwide hits, and the first side starts and ends with Natural, Mystic, and Exodus. 2 huge hits as well, classics of both reggae and rock music in general. This record blows my mind. This one album contains more consistently incredible songs than most artists' greatest hits collections. Even songs like So Much Things to Say and Heathen are reaching that amazing Wailers sound. And even if they didn't chart, the choruses are pleasantly indelible upon your mind. This record stands up there with the best LP releases of any artist ever. If you are just getting one Bob Marley record, man, get this one. Hey, if you dug this video, check out this other one where I ranked the Replacements albums worst to best, and this other one where I talked to Roger Rivas from the Agrolites about dub reggae. They're cool.